As you know, I live in Boston, in Cambridge, right in the heart of the Harvard MIT intellectual temple in some ways, and privileged to be in this position. One of the things I often find interesting is that, I suppose partly because so many people gravitate to this mecca of learning, it's very hard for individuals to actually tap in willy-nilly into the knowledge structures that are immediately around themselves. Let me be concrete. Healthcare is one of the most exciting areas in the university system in the city. And Boston is known for being a cutting-edge area of healthcare, along with a couple of other places in the United States. There are lots of students in the sciences, in engineering, in business, who are dreaming up all sorts of healthcare startups. They might be actually on the cutting edge of science. They might be in new drug discoveries. They might be in new delivery mechanisms for drugs. They might be in new diagnostics. They might be in the healthcare information technology, what have you. Most of them want to tap into the infrastructure that's provided by the teaching hospitals, because there's so much expertise in the minds of fabulous physicians and clinicians and surgeons and nurses and hospital administrators that could help them build these companies. And indeed, many of these people do want to help in building the companies. But it's very hard to create a matching mechanism that doesn't waste people's time and credibly matches potential demand and supply in this market for ideas. And so what happens is that match doesn't happen. There's very little ways to tap into the expertise. Devi noticed this in his many trips to Boston, partly to engage with my students and me, and partly to look around and learn, and took a page from this and said, why don't I open up the Narayan Health City to anybody in the world who wants to start a healthcare startup? Now, that sounds crazy. It's one thing for the heart surgeon with all his passion and his individual skill to say, I'm going to build a world-class enterprise. That itself is a long shot, but it's turned out to work out over the last decade. But to now say that any talent anywhere in the world should be the path to my door sounds doubly insane. But you know what? I think it's going to work. Because look at Chile, another emergent hub. Who would have thought that Chile would be an attractive location for people wanting to start companies in a variety of areas? But the government of Chile one day woke up and said that if you're a young person with some skills and you want to start a company, we will pay you to come to Chile and start it in Chile. Right? And talent is beating a path to its door, including talent from the United States, including foreign-born talent that finds itself by immigration conundrums kicked out in the United States, including Canadians, including people from all over the world, are beating a path to the door. So Devi is taking a page from all these different books, from the difficulty of the market for ideas panning out in practice for a number of people in the so-called mecca of healthcare, from the Chilean experiment, from the Israeli experiment to attract talent, and saying, why can't we do this in Bangalore? Bangalore already has a nice reputation, deservedly or otherwise. We have a nice health city that's up and running. We have a lot of patient data. If we can figure out a way to create some rudimentary protocols that protect the patient data, and that's a big if, admittedly, and create a minimalist infrastructure that brings young people together to share ideas, to interact with our physicians, to confront problems that developing countries like India are facing. You know, the world is our oyster. We can come up with all sorts of very interesting things. And that's exactly what's happened. There are lots of startups basically puttering around in the basement, including one that I recently helped set up with a student from Harvard who was from the medical devices industry, and a computer scientist from MIT who didn't really know that much about medical devices, but brought his skills and scientific algorithms to bear to create a company that's on the cutting edge of diabetes monitoring and behavior modification for patients who suffer from chronic diseases like diabetes. And the point is that that's up and running in the basement of the health city. There is no financial transaction there between Narayan Health City and the startup. But actually what there is something even more incredible. There is an infusion of youth, energy, talent, skills, ideas. It's just like a streak from the blue that kicks in and says, we can make this an idea factory, not just a factory to repeat cardiac surgeries over and over again and drive down costs, which it is, and that's the engine of what drives the entire thing in the health hospital, in the heart hospital. But it's also a factory for ideas. And I think that's something that can really sustain the entire enterprise over time. And most importantly, it speaks to the orientation of the team, which is looking for refreshing itself in some ways, as opposed to being protective about what it's created. And I think that's the hallmark of a great entrepreneur.